A few weeks ago, I was invited to the Meta office here in New York City to meet with representatives from some of the biggest brands in the country. There were about 10 other content creators who were invited in to this brand connection event, and I've never been to an event like this in my nearly 12 years of being a content creator. I loved it because it was very informal conversations with these brand representatives, and they seemed genuinely interested in what makes a great collaboration from the creator's perspective. And then last week, I got an Instagram DM from someone I know who works on the brand side in influencer marketing, asking if she could get on a call with me to help better understand what makes a successful collaboration for content creators. So these two things happening back to back gave me the inspiration to sit down and film this video today, which is going to cover what influencers want brands to know about partnerships. I'll be sharing some of my own insights and opinions here, but I did also poll my audience of fellow content creators on Instagram and YouTube to ask if they had any suggestions or submissions for this video, and you guys really came through. So if you're a brand, I hope you find it helpful to hear what we think from the creator perspective. And if you're a creator, definitely be sure to bookmark this video and keep these things in mind as you're evaluating inbound inquiries from brands. Let's start out with the first thing that influencers want brands to know about collaborations, which is that we are much more likely to respond to personalized emails that feel relevant to our brands. Because the influencer industry has grown so much over the years, there are more creators than ever to work with. And it's no wonder that as a brand, you might be looking at tactics for how to mass recruit content creators for a specific campaign. I know a lot of brands still use third-party platforms to source influencers. So think about Aspire, For, Obviously, Collectively, the Influencer Collective. I have talked about influencer platforms on this channel over the years, and a few years ago, I was really still recommending them because I thought they were a great way for content creators to get their first paid brand deals. If you're not familiar with an influencer platform, an influencer can sign up and see opportunities listed for different campaigns that they can apply to. And these platforms exist for both gifted or in-kind collaborations as well as paid projects. From a brand perspective, if you're looking to get lots of product out to lots of content creators, either in a gifted or paid capacity, using a platform like this does probably streamline that process a lot. However, over the years, I feel like these platforms have become less tailored to the interests of the content creators, and they are just not what they once used to be. Not only does this approach feel a little impersonal if you're receiving it as a content creator, but you also very rarely have the opportunity to negotiate the scope of work that is outlined in a project proposal. So, for example, there could be a paid project on one of these platforms that pays $500 for an Instagram reel. And maybe you're thinking, $500 for a reel? That's not bad if you're a micro-influencer. But then you start to see that the brand wants usage, that they want to boost it, and all of these additional factors would make that rate go up regardless of the size of your audience. Not only are you not able to negotiate, but you also are not really getting that direct FaceTime with the brand to build that relationship and connection with them. Some brands are still totally going to keep utilizing these platforms, and I do think that's fine. But if you are looking for more quality brand partners over quantity of paid projects, then I do think that sending a more personalized email from a brand email address, like from that particular representative, is going to feel a lot more exciting for us as content creators to be on the receiving end of versus a potentially low-paying offer from one of these third-party platforms that we know has been sent to hundreds of other creators. Let's move on to the next thing that influencers want brands to know about working together, and this was actually the number one response that I got when I surveyed my audience, and that is that our work takes time and we deserve to be compensated for our work. Now, I totally understand that not all brands have budgets for influencer marketing. So if you are in the position where you're sourcing influencers for gifted campaigns or PR gifting opportunities, I think just keeping in mind the reasonableness of your request is really important. For example, if you want to send an influencer a product, but you're also asking for 3 reels and 3 Instagram stories and paid usage for your own social media channels, and you're not able to pay them, that starts to feel a little bit unfair on the creator side. And there are still creators who may accept that offer. You know, this is not everybody's full-time job. Not everybody sees this as a business, and that's okay too. But as you know, if you've followed me for a long time, I of course believe content creators should be compensated for their work. And I think that evaluating just, is this request reasonable when you're reaching out to creators, is going to be really key. I've talked about this in other videos before, but I would say that less than 5% of the partnerships that I do today are gifted campaigns or unpaid campaigns. And this is a decision I've made because I am a full-time content creator, and this is the way that I make money. So unless I'm getting gifted something like a new couch for the apartment or a Peloton bike or something where I feel the value of the gift is more in line with what I might be paid for the content that I create, that is really the only time I am going to consider a gifted request. I also know this information isn't always easy for brands to find, but I still get a lot of unpaid offers because I have a small audience, and brands aren't always aware that I have over a decade of experience as a content creator. And I do think that if a brand can take the time to research that, you know, how long has this person been around? Are they a newer creator, or are they kind of a seasoned veteran? I mean, I still get a lot of unpaid requests or offers from brands that I have no problem turning down because of how established I am, but sometimes brands seem confused by that based on my audience size. And to me, you know, the amount of legitimacy that I feel like I've built for myself and the reputation I've built for myself as a content creator who's been doing this for so long is always something that I'm going to be comfortable protecting. And I really appreciate when brands take note of that and understand that that's why I charge for my work. Building off of the last point of the fact that influencers do deserve to be compensated for their work, the next point that I wanted to talk about is to just ensure that you are upfront with a content creator about every single detail in the scope of work. The reason I say this is because I have often started conversations with potential brand partners about working together and established a rate that I'm comfortable with based on the deliverables they've outlined. And then when I've received the contracts, I've noticed a lot of other terms kind of snuck into the contract or not mentioned to me during our negotiations, which then causes me to have to go back to the brand and say, hey, we just talked about me creating 1 reel and delivering 3 stories for Instagram. We didn't talk about usage, but I see it's in the contract. I would need to add on X amount of money to accommodate the usage request. Are you guys aligned? And sometimes they come back and they're like, what? No, but you said it was this much. And it's like, well, yeah, I didn't know that you wanted usage rates for 6 months or whatever it said in the contract. Whenever I see something that was not clearly laid out in our email negotiations appear in a contract, I try to give brands the benefit of the doubt, but sometimes it feels like brands are just trying to see what they can get away with and what they can get a creator to sign without reading the fine print of that contract. So when in doubt, just as many details as you can provide about the scope of work in the beginning is going to be very helpful for me as a creator to give you an accurate quote for the amount of work that's going to get done, and also to limit our back and forth with emails. If you're upfront about the entire scope of work and I give you a quote for it, we can either get to an agreement or say that it's not a fit much faster than if you send part of the scope of work, I discover the rest of the scope of work in the contract, and then we're not getting to an agreement there because the brand thought that I was charging X amount but didn't tell me the full scope of work, and now I'm saying that I'm going to charge Y amount. That's one thing that, like I said, I try to give brands the benefit of the doubt for, but I am starting to get a little tired of seeing time and time again because content creators are getting smarter and more savvy each year, and it's going to start to seem a little bit more nefarious than like something that was missed in an email if it becomes a repeated pattern, in my opinion. And any content creators watching, if you want my best tips for negotiating brand deals to make sure that both parties are happy, I will leave a related video in the description box and put it in the iBar if you'd like to watch that video next. The next thing I have on my list of what influencers want brands to know is that it's really helpful if you tell us what the goal of the campaign is. I often end up asking this question to brands because it's not something that's presented to me right away, but knowing what your end goal is for a particular collaboration will help us help you achieve that goal through our content. For example, say a newer skincare brand came to me and wanted to partner together, and their goal was to grow their Instagram audience or convert some of my Instagram followers over to their page. Knowing that is going to be so helpful for me before I go to create the content, because I can think about creating the content with that framework in mind. So for example, if I'm creating an Instagram reel, I'm probably going to say to the brand that we should post it as a collaboration where both of our handles are at the top so that my audience is seeing their content and is more likely to click over to their feed. It also probably means that I'm going to include some kind of call to action either at the end of the video, talking to the camera, or in the caption to encourage my audience to go follow the brand on Instagram. And even beyond that, it would be helpful for me to ask the brand if there's an incentive for my audience to follow them. So maybe we can say, make sure you're following me and the brand, and people who comment on this video will be entered to win a couple of products from the brand. So that is an incentive also for my audience to go follow them. And if I'm able to kind of hit those three things, where I use the collaboration feature, I have a call to action, and there's an incentive, that already 3x's the chance that my audience is going to go follow this brand that I'm doing a collaboration with. And if I didn't know any of that creating the content, I could have just done like a quick little snappy video that's aesthetically cool but doesn't accomplish the goal of the project. So knowing ahead of time, is your goal to convert followers? Is your goal brand awareness? Do you want to go viral and have this content seen by a lot of people? Is your goal actual sales and conversions, which I would say like 75% of the time that is a brand's goal, but you just want to ask and clarify, because then it gives you a lot more power to create content that will convert and that will help a brand achieve the goal that they are after. The next suggestion was submitted by a fellow content creator, which I totally agree with, and that is to please, we're begging you, give us enough time to adequately test the product to make sure that we really like it if it's something we haven't tried yet. I personally believe that the best brand partnerships come from creators who have posted organic content about a brand or product that they love, and then the brand comes in and says, hey, can you redo that video, but can we pay you and we'll put a little bit of a spin on it? Because those are going to be so much more genuinely authentic. For example, products I use and love in my everyday life are my Peloton bike, my Stanley cup, my Laneige lip sleeping mask. If any of those brands, and my email is hello@austentosone.com if you want to chat, were to reach out to me and say, hey, I know you already use your Peloton every week or use your lip mask every day. We want to do a collaboration video with you. I don't need time to test the product because I use it all the time and love it. And my audience is going to be so excited to be like, oh my God, after all these years of tagging Stanley or tagging Laneige, like Austen's finally got the partnership. How exciting. However, if it is a brand or a product that is new to us, we really do need some time to just test the product, incorporate it into our routine, and make sure that we're comfortable backing it and putting our, recommendation behind it. And I think this is important to do even with brands that you love, because there are some brands that I love pretty much all of their products, but some of them just do not work for me, and that's okay. One personal example that I'll tell you off the top of my head is I'm a big fan of Glossier makeup and skincare, but I tried Glossier You, the perfume, and I don't know if it's just me, but that smells like powdery diapers to me. And I think I'm in the 1% of people who do not like Glossier You. I even did a pretty negative review of it on my YouTube channel a few years back. But I just want to say that me disliking that product did not prevent me from continuing to buy products from the brand. And I even went on to work with Glossier in a paid capacity a year or two after that video went up because of all of the other products that I had used and loved from them over the years. So that's why I say just give us adequate time to test a product. Obviously, if we're doing like a first impressions video, that's one thing. But in general, I usually like to have about a week to test out a makeup product. I like to have ideally 3 to 4 weeks to test out skincare and hair products. And I just think that giving us a little bit of time and not having these crazy fast turnarounds for every single project is going to allow us to integrate things into our routine more. And if you guys watched my storytelling video where I talked about the best storytelling tips for content creators, I believe I even talked in that video about if you have a paid project coming up, to start including that product in your content before the paid post actually goes live. Like, if it's a skincare product, I could show me getting ready at my vanity and say, oh, I've been testing this new product from It Cosmetics and I've really been liking it so far. So that when the paid video comes around, it's not the first time my audience has ever heard me talk about it. So I will leave the storytelling video linked down below as well. I think that I have more tips in there about how to, help convey why you like something and paint a more holistic picture to your audience that will hopefully help your engagement and your, audience reception of your paid project too. On a similar note to that, I know I, as a content creator, always appreciate when a brand is respectful of my style or really trusts my relationship with my audience for a project, and they're not trying to script my every move when they hire me for a brand partnership. If you want to script my every move, you can hire me to, be the talent in a video for your social channels for the day, and I'm happy to walk through more of those types of talking points. But when I'm creating content for my own channel and my own platforms, I find that when I am just most authentic and I talk like myself and I approach the content in a similar way to how I approach my organic content, that my audience will be a lot more receptive to it. And our audiences are getting smarter every day. Like, people can tell when something is scripted or if you use a word that you would never ever say. So I just think it's helpful for brands to keep in mind that if you're coming to a content creator because you like their content, trust in that and let them run with what they already do. But now that they've got a bit of budget behind it, they're going to be able to just lean in even more to what makes their content great and help kind of bridge the gap between a full-out advertisement and an organic piece of content. That's where we meet in the middle when we talk about branded content in the first place. I used to be a huge print magazine reader when I was little, and I would often flip through the pages and see something that looked cool, like a very awesome styled photo shoot, and then later realize it was an advertorial in the bottom corner. And I feel like that should be the vibe with your sponsored content. You should be flipping through and thinking, oh, this is a cool shoot, and then be like, sponsored by Lancome? Like, who knew? Another thing creators want brands to know is that we love long-term partnerships, and we love them for a couple of reasons. Obviously, it means consistent and predictable income to us, but more than that, if we get to be paid to partner with one of our favorite brands over a period of 6 months or even a year, it just gives us so many more opportunities to be creative with that content and to establish multiple touch points with our audience so that the more they're seeing it, the higher chance that they'll take action on our content. This ties back into something I've talked about on this channel before, the rule of 7 in marketing, where it typically takes a consumer about 7 touch points with a product before they actually take action or go to learn more information about it. So it is a more long-term strategy, of course, so you might not see crazy results or conversions from just one post with a creator, but if that creator is given the creativity and the flexibility to create more pieces of content about that product over time, or even better, to show like results or transformation over time after using a product for a couple of months, I think that is so powerful and something that brands could definitely be tapping into more. Something else that I hear a lot of brands say about influencers, but I have experienced just as much as an influencer with brands, is just to have good email etiquette. Like I said, I've heard a lot of friends on the brand side tell me that they've had influencers and creators ghost them and never answer emails. And I have also experienced a lot of that from brands as well, which I think is so weird, especially when a brand is the one who's reaching out to me in the first place to discuss a collaboration. And then either we get to the point right before I would sign a contract, or sometimes you even do sign a contract and then you just never hear back from them. Like, please don't ghost us. I mean, it is so crazy to me when that happens. And if for some reason something has gone wrong, or you ended up hiring someone else, or you can no longer pay us, or whatever the case is, like, before we even get to that point, it's okay to send an email and let us know that it's not going to work out. I mean, it's not okay to have us create the content and have months go by and not pay us. That was my last one, so I guess we'll just jump to that now too, which is paying us on time really goes a long way and is something that we value, so please pay us on time. But even if you've reached out and you've made it sound like this is going to happen, you're interested, you send a contract, and for some reason you know, your manager says we're not going to be able to work with this creator, or it's just not going to happen, we're out of budget, we've already put it towards this person, you can just let us know what's going on. I think pretty much every creator understands at this point that you're not going to get selected for every campaign, and just because you got an email about an opportunity doesn't mean it's always going to work out. And while that may be disappointing for a brief period of time, there's always going to be something else happening around the corner. And at least speaking from my own experience at this point, I'm very good at dusting myself off and getting back up pretty quickly by now, especially after, like I said, almost 12 years of creating content. Being responsive to any emails that we are sending you, especially about tracking a product that's being shipped to us, and if we're waiting on a brand to approve our content that typically goes live on a certain day. All of these things are just helpful to communicate and keep in mind, and please try to respond to emails if you can within 24 or 48 hours if it's a paid project. And that goes for creators too. I think we need to also accept the responsibility of replying to brands in a timely fashion when we're working on a paid project together, especially if there's a deadline. If you have anything else to add to this list, whether you're a brand or content creator, feel free to leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought of today's video. If you've made it this far in the video, you know what I'm going to say, which is please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for new videos every week, all about life as a content creator. And if you're a brand who is actively looking to work with influencers and you want help figuring out the right influencers to reach out to promote your products and services, be sure to check out the up next recommendation on the screen. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.